Hey, welcome to another webcast from College Recruiter, where we believe that every student and recent graduate deserves a great career, and that it should be easy and inexpensive for employers to hire them. I am Stephen Rothberg. I'm the founder of College Recruiter, and I am joined today by Brad Boggs, our president and chief operating officer. Brad, good to see you.
Hey, Steven. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
How's
So
everything?
it's great. It's Minnesota and it's summertime. So this is the time of the year to be here. Not so much where you are.
That this month.
We'll check again in January and see if maybe somehow that's reversed between Texas and Minnesota. Something tells me you're going to be in a better position then.
Yeah, I'll probably be a little tanner for sure.
So we just published an article to our blog that we thought it would be fun to have a bit of a conversation around.
Yeah.
And basically, the 5 trends that are affecting recent grad hiring in 2024 and beyond. I know you've been pretty involved with kind of getting that article together and talking about the 5 items.
Right.
You want to kind of run through each of them a little bit, and then listeners
Yeah.
can kind of go to the article for more detail?
Yeah. Fantastic. And thanks for posting the QR code there. So scan that or visit the link there. Fantastic. So let's go through and unpack these. The top
Sure.
5 trends affecting recent grads and recent grad early career hiring this year and beyond. So the top, hybrid, in no particular order really, but hybrid work options growing in importance, obviously. Think about this class. They've been in school for maybe 5 years.
Yep.
Starting school or just getting into school when the pandemic rolls around, the height of the pandemic. So very accustomed to working remotely, taking classes remotely. But this one's a little surprising for me, right? According to a Handshake survey, nearly twice the number of soon-to-be grads are more likely to apply to a job with a hybrid work schedule as opposed to a fully remote schedule. Only 22% soon-to-be grads said that they would apply to companies. Is that surprising to you?
2 years ago, that would have been surprising to me. But now, as I've talked to more of them, including, my wife and I have 3 adult kids, one of whom works for College Recruiter. Now I'm not surprised. And it's kind of like trying to think back 187 years ago when I was that age. It's like, it's so important to have mentorship,
Right.
management, to be able to like walk 12 feet to your boss's desk to get some quick feedback early in your career. When you've been
Right.
doing something for decades, you don't need all that. You don't,
Right.
I don't want all of that. Like, you don't either, I don't think.
Right.
But it is really nice to be able to like, hey, I'm having a problem. What do I do about this? And
Right.
just get that like in 3 seconds. And hybrid, if you're in the office like Monday, Tuesday, and home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can get that.
For sure. Best of both worlds. But it's really nice that Gen Z recognizes the importance of a hybrid schedule or being in the office some days. So I think managers would prefer it. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of companies trying to bring people back to the office for FaceTime, for mentorship, hands-on work. But for Gen Z to recognize that, pretty cool. I think very promising.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Brett. It's one thing if you're like 40, 50 years old and you've been through all of the fully in-person and then fully remote. And I think you better understand the value of the in-person. If you're 22 and you've basically never been in the office,
right,
it's kind of hard to understand the importance of something that you've never experienced.
Yeah, very true. So second one, 4-day work weeks becoming routine and even expected. So according to a Gartner survey, 63% of candidates rated 4-day work weeks for the same pay, mind you, as a top new innovative perk that they're looking for an employer. But a whopping 76% of new grads believe that a 4-day work week should be the new standard.
Love it.
Yeah. So we have some experience with that, right?
Yeah.
I joined College Recruiter nearly 3 years ago. And at that time, you and Faith had already adopted was it 1 day, 1 full day a month as a mental health day?
Right. And it was during COVID. We had several employees that probably actually most of our employees, that periodically just really needed a break. Right.
Yeah.
It might have been to go to the doctors. It might have been to get shopping done, to go and help your mother-in-law, any sort of thing. And yeah, so one day we basically added a holiday day
Right.
each month.
Once a month. Yeah.
And what we found really quickly was that we had not a decrease in productivity, we had an increase.
Hmm. That's been my experience as well, right? So I joined College Recruiter and I came from Circa. And one of the great perks there was during the summertime, so about 3 months, every Friday was a half day. So we had half day Fridays. It was a fantastic summer perk. People loved it. People got to get out of the office early, take advantage of the sunshine, take in outdoor music, or go on family trips. You don't have to take as much of your PTO. And I found the same thing with our teams. Productivity was up in those weeks, looking forward to getting things done before you got out of the office on Friday, right? And you're probably not scheduling as many meetings on Friday morning either, because you're just trying to hammer things away and get out of the office. So we adopted that at College Recruiter. Starting with the summer, it worked so well for us, we decided to extend that. So now instead of obviously the one wellness day a month, every Friday is a half day Friday. And we haven't seen any drop off. We've seen the flip side, more productivity during the week.
Yeah, it's expensive. The bean counters would say, wow, that's 26 extra days a year, which is more than most Americans get in total.
Right.
But yeah, to us, it's about outcomes, and
For sure.
the productivity is better.
Yeah, I think if you said it, if you manage to the outcomes and you have clear expectations, I think employers will be pleasantly surprised with this if they do it right.
Yeah.
So the third one, organizations beginning to offer creative benefits to address the cost of going into the office and work, right? Nearly 60% of employees say the cost of going into the office really outweighs some of the benefits of doing so. So maybe looking elsewhere.
Yeah, I read this in the article, and all I could think of is this is just about paying people better.
Right.
I
think so too.
Whether you pay for parking or pay for transportation or subsidize meals in the employee cafeteria or any of those sorts of things, at the end of the day, it's about compensation.
Right.
And if you underpay people, if you've got a retail store, if you're Walmart, Target, and an employee can go over to and work in an Amazon warehouse and make $4 an hour more, you're probably going to lose that person.
Right.
I think people are smart enough to understand the whole compensation package.
Yeah, that's where my mind went as well. And obviously pay top of mind for early career candidates strapped with student loans, probably record student loans from, when we were in school as well. So I agree. Pay top of mind.
Were there schools when I was that age?
I went to school a few years after you, but yes.
You weren't in a one-room schoolhouse with slate, like sitting next to Laura Ingalls Wilder. No, right. that was me, not you. Yeah.
Right. So the fourth one, generative AI, right?
Yeah.
Executives wanting HR to figure out how to adopt generative AI into hiring practices, increasing automation, ways they can improve hiring practices using AI. And on the flip side, early career candidates obviously wanting to use generative AI are now being used to using Gen AI in how they job search, how they perform their work, etc. So top of mind. This is probably, this is a big one, so probably its own pod as well. But we dive into this one into the article. A lot to unpack here.
And just briefly, I was surprised that only 50%, 50, of these Gen Z candidates reported that they were like working to build their skills with generative AI. Maybe it was just the way the question was phrased. Maybe they're just sort of doing it. I'm using ChatGPT, I'm using Bard, whatever, all the time, but maybe they're not thinking about it in terms of actually building skills.
Right.
I would have thought it would have been 80, 90%.
Or how you'll use it in the workplace. I agree. And the study that these stats are taken from, say 21% of students said they're more likely to take a job where they have a chance to experiment with generative AI. I think that's going to be a lot higher as well. I think everyone knows we're coming to a time when we're going to be using generative AI through our work week. So
yeah.
So the fifth one is all about upskilling and training. On the employer side, moving to more of a skills-based hiring approach, and job seekers wanting to apply to companies offering training and upskilling. Many companies obviously moving to skills-based hiring approaches, looking at skills requirements, possibly more important than degrees, right? If you can prove to me that you have the skills, do I really have to require that you have a college degree? We've seen companies like Google, Delta Airlines, Delta having its own issues this week as well, aside from this, but Accenture, Zoho, to name a few, have removed degree requirements from some job postings in order to attract qualified candidates who don't necessarily meet the degree requirement.
Yeah, I saw something that the percentage of job postings requiring bachelor's degrees has dropped by like 50%. The inference in the article that I read, it made it sound like therefore those with bachelor's degrees are far less in demand. Like that hiring for college and university students therefore must be really down. I don't read it that way. I read it as employers are getting a lot better at understanding that a bachelor's degree or equivalent work experience, military background, whatever, are going to help them understand if that candidate is qualified. If you've been doing that job successfully for 5 years, aren't you a lower risk hire than somebody who just has a 4-year degree and has never done that work before?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And on the candidate side, what they're looking for in employers, almost half of them said they would be more inclined to apply to an employer who has company-sponsored training and upskilling resources, right? Now, a lot of this is hard skills based. I would like practices in place to help teach me the hard skills I'll need to succeed and the programs I'll be using and stuff. But think about some of the soft skills that are necessary, right, from the employer stance, especially for management at times like this where we've been through pandemics and now two what seems like fairly consequential presidential elections and political unrest, probably at a fever pitch. Upskilling management, which affects hiring and also how you're able to retain talent. Upskilling management to better manage conflict, manage some of the discussions that are going to be happening in the workplace. To come to a place of emotional intelligence is going to be critical.
Yeah. It's management, I think, it's an incredibly undervalued skill. And I don't think that it is something that people are born with.
Right.
I think it's learned. Your personality, I think there's a lot of that we're just born that way. Some people are just like naturally cheerier. Other people are like more naturally skeptical, whatever. But knowing how to manage people is hard. And I think it dovetails back into that first one that you talked about, or that we talked about with the hybrid workplace. So for people who want to learn more, they can go to the blog article, www.collegerecruiter.com/blog, or just scan the QR code on their phone and it'll take them right there.
Right. Fantastic. Enjoyed the conversation. Go to the blog to learn more, dive into this a little deeper.
Awesome. Brad, been great talking to you.
Thanks for having me. See you next time.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.